On cryptography that we were just on, making sure that future generations know that the WikiLeaks material is the genuine one, because we can imagine some person 200 years from now finding a disk, right, with the WikiLeaks material, and we've been having 1984 for 6 generations.
Yeah. This is a very interesting question. So we actually do have the internal proposal about how to deal with that. But it will take some work, but maybe not too much. So this is a very interesting question about how do you name something. And when I say the US First Amendment, you know what I'm talking about, approximately. Now you may not be able to remember all the text, but you know that you can go somewhere and look this up. But then how do you know it's the real First Amendment? Well, you know that in practice, you know that this text is spread very far and wide. It's in many different things. So each source sort of provides a consistency check for the other. And so we're able to talk about this in conversation without quoting the whole paragraph, the whole sentence. And something that's quite interesting. But what if you have a longer document and you have a name for it? It's not spread too far. Maybe it's only in a couple of libraries. And then someone changes. Let's imagine it is the First Amendment, but there's only 2 books with it in, and someone changes one, and then someone changes the other the same way.
Right.
And now we discuss the First Amendment, and you go, "Oh, I think it's like this," and I go, "No, it sounds strange. It's not quite like what I remember. Let's go check in the books," and then we see this modified version. So this is once again this Orwell's victim of if you control the present, you control the past. Right. Control the past, you control the future. In this case, the interpretation of the First Amendment, of course, is actually spread everywhere, so in practice that doesn't happen. But for new stuff, it's just coming out, for new documents of political relevance, and in our case, for new leaks, they're really extremely important documents that may change a whole government. How do we ensure that they are consistently named and not changed as they're copied, say, to neurosites, other sites that copy our material, or a really, really important document, and say we're structured to avoid being defeated in lawsuits, but let's imagine the worst came to the worst. There was a totalitarian move across the world, and there was World War III or something, not with nuclear weapons, but some other kind of war. How would we keep that sort of consistency between the name of something and its full representation? So in cryptography there is a way to do that, a natural way to do that, which is called a hash cipher. So you can take a string of information, any sort of information, from one sentence to a paragraph to a whole book to a whole movie, and you can sort of crunch it all down, squish it all down, to you're just left with 32 characters. And these 32 characters are inextricably bound up with the precise book, paragraph, movie, whatever sequence of information you have, anything that you can transmit over to. It's bound up and has important properties that if you modify this in any way, even change a letter, this will also change. And if you have this short reference to this bit of information, there's no other, you can't deliberately make some other type of information, other movie that corresponds to this.
Right.
So these are sort of uniquely bound. But this thing, because it's only 32 characters or 16 characters, you can actually communicate this very quickly. These are sort of random characters, so human beings can't say them, but you can cut and paste them. Fine. So they're sort of like as useful as URLs. You can spread these around. And these are for all time guaranteed to sort of be permanently bound. They're true names for something. true name, a true representation can't be changed. So the only problem with them is that there's some string of random characters, so they're very hard to remember. So unlike the US First Amendment, which I just said to you, and I can remember these as something like ADS1527862, etc.
All right.
But you can stick them in documents and cite them and reference them.
Right.
And we have another scheme to then make a mapping between these hash references, these sort of true names, crunched down compressed stuff, to have a correspondence between these and words you can remember.
Right.
And then we don't have to worry about these and we can just communicate this.
Right.
So the way of thinking about this is you may have seen something like tinyURL or bit.ly, something like this. What semantic role are these fulfilling? What sort of cognitive role are these fulfilling? They take some URL, some annoying string of characters, which is not too long, but it is kind of long. It's hard to remember, maybe 3,500 characters, something like this. They take that annoying thing and then they map it onto something that's short and easy to remember. tinyurl.com/first A, the First Amendment. Maybe that goes to some library page, Library of Congress. So you can actually remember this short one. You can't remember this long URL. So this is actually the same basic problem as having a sort of a string of numbers,
Right.
32 characters of numbers that are hard to remember, and something that is short is easy to remember. So we have this plan for a sort of distributed version of tinyURL where you can't change
All right.
the mapping. So the information spreads out to servers and there's no delete function. So when you create this first mapping between, let's say we take the First Amendment as text, a sentence of text, and then this is getting technical, but we apply this hash cipher to it. So now we crunch it down to some numbers,
Right.
which are there's a permanent correspondence to these, an intrinsic correspondence. This is this string of numbers is a sort of true name for this First Amendment.
Right.
But this is hard to remember.
Yeah.
But we'll always refer to this thing, and not refer to anything else ever. Now we produce a short string. We can choose it. First A. It's what we choose. That's easy to speak about. Or even just First Amendment. And now we correlate this First Amendment, the string First Amendment, with these numbers, which then correlate to the whole expansion of the First Amendment. We spread this correlation between, like tinyURL does with URLs, we spread that to a bunch of servers which don't have any delete function. So now it's set there permanently.
Right.
Problem solved. And so now whenever you say First Amendment in this on a normal converse bit, I say, what is the short name for First Amendment? This is the true name, this sequence of numbers.
Right.
This is the short name, the sort of easy to remember human representation.
Right.
What is the short name for that? And you tell me, it's First Amendment.
Okay.
So now we go bang, from here, First Amendment, to the full text of the First Amendment. It doesn't matter where it's stored.
Right.
Could be stored on a CD, could be stored on any internet server, the domain names could change, etc.
Right,
It will
right.
always refer to precisely the same thing. Doesn't matter if it's stored on the Guardian and it gets litigated and taken down or changed, you will know that it is changed because the true name will have changed, and therefore the short name won't refer to the same thing anymore.
Exactly.